She didn't look like trouble, but the Corps was about to find out. When Elena Ramirez arrived at Paris Island, she blended right in. Too well, maybe. She wasn't loud, didn't crack jokes, didn't try to impress anyone. Just another name on the roster, another uniform in formation. Most of the recruits were younger than her by almost a decade. She was 27, a late enlistee, former EMT. No military background, no connections, nothing flashy. But there was something different about her. Something most people didn't notice unless they were trained to look for it. She moved like someone who had seen real pressure. Not the fake kind, the real kind. The kind where seconds matter. The kind where lives are on the line. By the third day of boot camp, the drill instructors started watching her. They never said anything directly, but you could feel it. A longer glance during drills. A tighter circle during inspections. Elena noticed, but she didn't change. She didn't speak unless spoken to. Didn't complain. Didn't explain herself. She wasn't the fastest. She wasn't the strongest. But she was precise. Measured. Like she was always calculating something in her head. Some of the recruits joked that she looked like she was already planning her retirement. Others just ignored her. The quiet ones didn't last, they said. They were wrong. Everything changed on the first day of live-fire training. The recruits lined up at the range, most of them nervous. You could hear the usual chatter. Keep your eye on the front sight. Don't flinch. Just breathe. For many of them, it was their first time firing a military-grade weapon. Not for Elena. When it was her turn, she didn't hesitate. No adjusting. No dry runs. She picked up the M16, loaded it, and took position like she had done it 100 times. Maybe she had. No one really knew. Her first shot rang out. Direct hit. The second, dead center. Third, fourth, fifth, all clean. Tight groupings. Almost too perfect. The instructor raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He walked down to the target, examined the hits, then called over another instructor. They didn't say much. Just looked at each other. Then back at Elena. She stood still, calm, like nothing unusual had happened. By the end of the drill, she had scored the highest in the group. Not just that day. Of the entire training cycle so far, her grouping was tighter than any of the other recruits. Male or female. No misses. No errors. It wasn't beginner's luck. And they all knew it. Word started spreading that night. Quietly. Elena Ramirez might not just be good. She might be something else entirely. A few recruits started asking questions. Had she done competition shooting? Did she grow up with guns? But Elena didn't answer. Not out of arrogance. Just because she didn't think it mattered. She was there to serve, not to explain. But the instructors were already talking. Not just about her aim, but her discipline, her stillness, her ability to tune everything else out. One of them said she reminded him of someone he'd trained years ago. A sniper who went on to do classified work. Same eyes, he said. Cold but clear. Not cruel. Just focused. No one knew it yet, but that first round of live fire was just a beginning. Elena Ramirez had arrived quietly, but she wasn't going to stay in the background for long. She stepped up, took aim, and changed the mood of the whole range. The next day, live fire continued. The recruits were expected to hit targets at various distances, basic combat marksmanship. It was the same drill repeated again and again. Most recruits were still struggling, breathing too fast, jerking the trigger, missing more than hitting. Instructors shouted reminders. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Front sight, center mass. Some recruits improved. Others got frustrated. But Elena, she walked onto the line like she was clocking in for a regular job. No nervous energy. No wide eyes. Just quiet focus. She adjusted the sling, set her feet, and waited for the command. The instructor gave her a brief glance. He didn't say anything, but he was watching more closely this time. Targets popped. Rifles fired. Echoes cracked across the field. Elena's weapon barked 5 times. Measured. Precise. No wasted movement. When the range went cold and everyone walked down to check their targets, hers stood out. A tight cluster near the center. All within a circle the size of a coffee mug. Even at 300 yards, it looked like she had used a stencil. No one else in the group came close. Instructors didn't praise her. They weren't allowed to, but they exchanged a look. One of them made a note on the clipboard. Not just a score, something else. The rest of the recruits noticed. They didn't say much. Some gave her a respectful nod. Others looked away. A few started keeping their distance. Not out of disrespect, but because they didn't know how to relate to someone who made the impossible look easy. After lunch, they moved to the dynamic course. Targets would appear at random intervals and distances. Recruits had to respond quickly, adjusting position and aim with each shot. It was designed to create stress. Most recruits struggled. Shots went wide. Weapons jammed. Elbows slipped in the gravel. Instructors barked constantly. When it was Elena's turn, the range went unusually quiet. She stepped onto the course, dropped to prone position, and waited. The first target popped. She hit it. Second target farther lower. Hit. Third moving left. Hit. Fourth. Fifth. Hit. Hit. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. Every shot was deliberate, balanced. She cleared the course in less than half the average time. One instructor turned to another. "She's not just good," he said. "She's controlled." That night in the barracks, the mood shifted. Elena still didn't talk much. She didn't brag. But the recruits started watching her more closely. Some began asking for advice. A few of them, the smarter ones, took notes. But others didn't like it. There was one in particular, Dawson. Big, loud, confident. First to volunteer, last to admit mistakes. He didn't take kindly to being outperformed by someone who barely spoke. During lights out, he made a comment just loud enough for her to hear. "You ever think about why they're watching you so closely? Maybe they're just waiting for you to mess up." Elena didn't respond. She'd heard worse. But she also knew something the others didn't. This wasn't about proving herself. It was about finding her edge. The next morning, the senior drill instructor pulled her aside. No audience. No fanfare. He handed her a form. She was being scheduled for the advanced qualification test, 2 weeks ahead of normal. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. Elena looked down at the form, nodded once, and folded it into her uniform pocket. Whatever came next, she was ready. Because the truth was, she hadn't even started pushing her limits yet. The last woman who held the record was a legend. Until Elena showed up. The advanced qualification course wasn't just harder. It was meant to separate the good from the elite. Fewer targets, longer distances, stricter time limits. No room for hesitation. No forgiveness for nerves. Only one woman in the last 5 years had completed it with a perfect score. Her name still sat at the top of the board in the training office. Everyone saw it when they walked past. Most didn't even try to beat it. They just tried to survive it. Elena didn't ask about the course. She didn't study other scores. She just showed up. The wind was sharp that morning. Crosswind, steady, just enough to throw off a shot if you didn't adjust. The instructors knew it. They waited to see if Elena would. She did. Before the first command, she recalculated her sight settings. A quiet twist of the knob. Nothing flashy. Just a small adjustment that told the instructors everything they needed to know. This wasn't guesswork. The first target popped at 250 yards. She hit it before the echo of the command had faded. Second target, moving, low profile. Hit. Third, 400 yards, angled. Hit. Fourth, 600 yards, uphill. Miss. No one expected that. Even Elena blinked, slightly surprised. She didn't panic. She adjusted, exhaled, and set the next round. Hit. The last set was the toughest. Rapid engagement. Multiple targets, different heights, time limit, 15 seconds. No recruit had ever cleared it clean on the first attempt. She did. The last round hit just as the timer buzzed. Dead center. No margin. Perfect score. No celebration. Just silence. One instructor stared at the paper in his hand. Then he walked over to the whiteboard inside the trailer and quietly wiped off the top score, the name that had been there for years. He replaced it with 5 words. Ramirez. 100%. 7 minutes, 12 seconds. Outside, Elena was already reassembling her weapon. By the time the other recruits returned from chow, word had spread. Someone had seen the board. Someone had told someone else. Within an hour, the entire unit knew. Elena Ramirez had just broken the record. Not tied it. Not barely beat it. Shattered it. Most recruits didn't know what to say. Some stared at her like she was no longer one of them. Others looked away completely. A few offered congratulations, but quietly, like they weren't sure if they should. Only one person said something that stuck. The senior drill instructor passed her in the hallway that evening and paused just long enough to speak. Records don't last forever, but reputations do. You just earned yours. She nodded, but said nothing. Later that night, she sat on the edge of her bunk, lacing up her boots for the next day's ruck march. Her roommate leaned over. How long have you been shooting like that? Elena didn't answer right away. Then, without looking up, she said quietly, Since I was 12. Only thing my dad and I ever did together. The other woman didn't press. The conversation ended, but something had changed. The story wasn't just about how Elena hit her targets. It was about why she never missed. And the truth was, she wasn't chasing records. She was chasing something deeper. Something she hadn't even named yet. No one said it out loud, but she wasn't welcome anymore. After Elena broke the record, the atmosphere around her shifted. It wasn't open hostility, but it wasn't silence either. The recruits who used to sit near her at meals started finding other tables. Conversations paused when she walked into a room. Even the instructors, who respected her skill, kept their distance. Some people can't handle seeing someone do what they were told was impossible. The murmurs started quietly. Questions disguised as jokes. Maybe her scope was calibrated wrong. Maybe she had better ammo. Maybe she got lucky. Dawson, the same recruit who once tried to rattle her in the barracks, was the loudest. They're calling her the machine now, he said one night, his voice full of sarcasm. Maybe she should be deployed to Area 51. Others laughed, not because they believed it, but because it was easier than admitting she had earned everything. But Elena didn't react. She kept her head down, kept training, and followed every order like nothing had changed. That only made it worse. In the Marine Corps, confidence is respected, but calm dominance? That unsettles people. A few days later, an unexpected message came through the chain of command. Elena was scheduled for a private retest. Advanced rifle qualification. Same course. No audience. No support. Just her, a weapon, and 2 senior officers watching. She wasn't told why. The official reason was equipment verification. But everyone knew what it really meant. Someone up the chain didn't believe the numbers. Someone thought it was too clean. She reported to the range at 0530. Fog hung low over the field. The 2 officers were already waiting. No greetings. No conversation. One handed her a rifle she had never used before. Clean, but unfamiliar. No complaints. No hesitation. She walked to the line, adjusted the sling, and waited. The targets popped up one by one. She hit them all. Every distance. Every angle. No misses. Her time? 2 seconds faster than before. One officer double-checked the sheet, then folded it in silence. The other handed her a clipboard and said, without looking at her, "That'll be all, Ramirez." She nodded once, then walked off the range. No congratulations. No handshake. Just confirmation. By the time she returned to the barracks, the news had already reached the others. And this time, no one questioned the numbers. There was nothing left to doubt. That night, as she sat sharpening her boot knife, her squad leader approached. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Some people don't like excellence. Makes them look in the mirror. She didn't look up, just kept sharpening. He continued. You want to make people comfortable. You stay average. You want to lead. You better get used to being alone. She stopped, finally looked at him, and said, I'm not here to make anyone comfortable. He nodded and walked away. Elena had proven herself again. But she knew that wouldn't be the last time. Not because she had to. Because some people need to see it more than once before they believe it. And she was ready to keep showing them, as many times as it took. The weeks that followed tested more than just Elena's marksmanship. After proving herself twice on the range, the next challenge was the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. It was designed to push recruits beyond their limits: physical strength, endurance, mental toughness. Everyone knew the story. You could be the best shot in the world, but if you couldn't keep up with the physical demands, none of it mattered. Elena wasn't about to let that happen. She showed up to the test early, laced up her boots tighter than usual, and took a deep breath. The morning was cool, but the sun was already pushing heat through the clouds. The first event was the movement to contact, a timed 880-yard sprint in full gear. Her heart pounded as the whistle blew. She took off, steady and controlled. The recruits around her started fast, but faded quickly. Elena stayed smooth, pacing herself like a runner who knew exactly how far she could push. By the last 100 yards, she surged ahead, crossing the finish line with a time that surprised even the instructors. Next came the ammo can lift, a test of upper body strength and stamina. She grabbed the 30-pound can and started lifting it over her head, rhythm steady. Some recruits dropped early, their arms shaking. Elena didn't. 20 reps, 25, 30. The instructor, watching, nodded quietly. She was already hitting above average. But it wasn't the physical test that caught everyone's attention. It was the final event, the maneuver under fire. A grueling obstacle course with simulated enemy fire, requiring speed, agility, and mental focus. Most recruits stumbled under the pressure, fumbling through the course, missing checkpoints, or falling in exhaustion. Elena moved through the obstacles like a shadow. She ducked, crawled, climbed, and sprinted with a precision that made the whole drill field feel smaller. She wasn't the fastest, but she was the most deliberate. Every step, every breath, every motion was calculated. When she crossed the finish line, the entire range was silent for a moment. Then the senior instructor finally spoke. Unbelievable. That was the best run I've seen in years. Word spread fast. Elena Ramirez was no longer just a marksmanship prodigy. She was a complete Marine, physical strength, mental resilience, and skill combined. But the pressure was mounting. The recruits who once doubted her were starting to watch her every move. Some with respect, others with resentment. Every success brought more whispers. And then came the announcement. A special training opportunity. The best of the best would be invited to attend a specialized Marine Corps sniper course. Only a handful selected from the entire training cohort. Elena's name was on the list. It wasn't just a chance to learn more. It was a chance to prove herself again, against the toughest instructors and toughest standards. Her squad mates gathered around, some congratulating, others quietly wishing she'd fail. The tension was thick. She accepted it silently, knowing the real battle was just beginning. That night, alone in her bunk, Elena stared at a worn photo taped inside her locker. It was a picture of her and her father, taken years ago during a hunting trip, his steady hand guiding hers on the rifle, a memory she carried like armor. She whispered, "This one's for you." Tomorrow, the sniper course would begin, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The sniper course was legendary. It wasn't just about hitting targets. It was about patience, endurance, and thinking like your enemy. The instructors told recruits that half the battle was mental, the other half, pure discipline. Elena arrived on the first day and felt the weight of expectation settle immediately. The air smelled different here, sharper, colder, heavy with challenge. Around her, the other recruits sized each other up. Some sneered. Others kept quiet. Everyone knew this course was designed to break the best. From the start, the training pushed her beyond what she thought possible. Early mornings began before dawn. Long hours crawling through mud, scouting terrain, calculating wind speed, distance, and bullet trajectory. Every day ended with lectures on camouflage and stealth, maps, and ballistics. Sleep was scarce. Mistakes were costly. On the second day, they were given their first live-fire exercise. Hit 5 targets scattered at varying distances up to 800 yards, all under a strict time limit. Elena's heart hammered as she found her position. The sun was bright, but the wind was tricky, gusting unpredictably from the left. She took a breath and dialed in her scope adjustments. The first shot cracked through the morning silence, hitting the target dead center. The second, third, and fourth shots followed, each a calculated decision. But the fifth target was moving, small and fleeting. She waited. Her finger hovered. A split-second hesitation. Then the shot. She missed. The instructors were watching. The frustration hit her like a punch. She wasn't used to missing. The group moved on, but Elena stayed behind, crawling silently closer to the last target to observe it. She studied its movement patterns, wind shifts, terrain changes. It wasn't luck that made a sniper. It was understanding every factor. That night, she barely slept, replaying the shot over and over. The mistake wasn't just a miss. It was a lesson. Days passed, each more grueling than the last. Elena's body ached, but her focus sharpened. She learned to listen to the wind, to read the smallest hints in the environment, to slow down when everyone else rushed. On the fifth day, the instructor set a new challenge, a 1,200-yard shot, the longest in the course's history for a first-time sniper trainee. Most recruits flinched. Elena didn't. She found her spot, settled in, and prepared. Time seemed to slow. 1 shot, 2 shots. The third shot hit, dead center. A murmur spread through the observers. She had done what few could. But this was only the beginning. Over the next weeks, Elena proved she wasn't just a sharpshooter. She was a student of the craft, relentless and unyielding. When others faltered, she pressed on. When doubt crept in, she pushed it aside. One evening, as the sun dipped low, an instructor approached her. "You have something rare," he said quietly. "Not just skill, but patience. Most snap shots out of fear. You wait, watch, and strike." Elena looked up, eyes tired but steady. "I don't want to be fast," she said. "I want to be sure." The instructor smiled. "That's what makes a true Marine." As the course neared its end, Elena stood among the top recruits. But more importantly, she had earned respect, not because of records, but because of heart. Her journey was far from over. The battles ahead would test more than aim. But for the first time, she felt ready for whatever came next. The final test was coming, a grueling field exercise designed to push every sniper to their limits. It was a simulation of real combat conditions. No second chances, no margin for error. Elena knew this moment was the true measure of everything she had learned. The night before, she lay in her sleeping bag, staring at the ceiling of the tent. The distant hum of generators and faint voices filled the air. She thought about her father, the man who taught her to steady her breath, to trust the rifle, to never settle for less. She whispered, "This one's for you." At dawn, the team moved out into the rugged terrain. Thick woods, steep hills, and unpredictable weather awaited. Visibility was low. The scent of damp earth and pine filled the air. Elena's orders were clear. Infiltrate enemy lines undetected, locate high-value targets, and eliminate them with precision. She moved like a shadow, crawling low, using every ounce of camouflage training. Time was against her. The clock started ticking the moment she crossed the boundary. Hours passed as she advanced. Each breath measured, every movement calculated. She found a ridge overlooking a valley, the perfect vantage point. She set up her position, carefully adjusting her rifle and scope. The first target appeared, enemy communications officer, pacing near a radio tent. Elena's finger hovered over the trigger. She waited. The officer turned, exposing his side. The shot was silent but deadly. Target down. Minutes later, a convoy approached on a dirt road below. 2 vehicles carrying supplies and armed guards. She adjusted for distance and wind, then fired 2 shots. Both vehicles disabled. The guards scrambled, but were caught off guard. Her heart pounded. She couldn't afford mistakes. Suddenly, movement in the trees. Enemy patrol. They were searching for the sniper. Elena melted into the underbrush, holding her breath as they passed within feet. Her camouflage was flawless. She stayed still for what felt like hours. When the patrol moved on, she resumed her mission. Next, she spotted the final target, a high-ranking officer supervising the battlefield. The risk was high. The target was heavily guarded. Elena knew this shot would change everything. She checked her wind calculations. The distance was nearly 900 yards. Her heart beat steady. She exhaled slowly. Then the shot. The officer fell. Chaos erupted below. Enemy soldiers scrambled. Radios blared. Elena packed up swiftly and disappeared into the forest. Hours later, extraction teams arrived. The mission was a success. Back at base, the debriefing was intense. Every detail scrutinized. When the commanding officer looked Elena in the eye, he said, "You did more than meet expectations. You redefined them." Her fellow snipers, some skeptical, others amazed, nodded in approval. For Elena, it was confirmation. She had earned her place, not just as a record-breaking shooter, but as a Marine who could carry the weight of real war. That night, alone again, she allowed herself a rare moment of pride. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The real fight wasn't just about hitting impossible targets. It was about proving to herself and everyone else that she belonged. And she wasn't stopping now. The weeks after the field exercise passed in a blur. Elena's name was quietly spoken in training halls and mess lines, a whisper of something extraordinary. The record-breaking marksman who became the stealthiest sniper. The woman who refused to back down, no matter the odds. But for Elena, it wasn't about fame. It never had been. She was driven by something deeper, an unshakable promise she made years ago, long before the Corps. A promise to herself and to her father, whose voice still echoed in her mind every time she steadied her rifle. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A deployment order. Elena was assigned to a Marine reconnaissance unit headed to a volatile region overseas. The mission was to provide sniper support during high-risk operations, a real test of everything she had learned. She packed her gear, the weight of responsibility heavier than her pack. As the aircraft lifted off, she looked out over the clouds, feeling the calm before the storm. On the ground, conditions were harsher than training. The terrain was unforgiving. The enemy was unpredictable. Every day brought new dangers, and every shot could be the difference between life and death. Elena quickly earned the respect of her teammates. Quiet, focused, and deadly accurate. But she also earned something else, trust. During one mission, her unit was pinned down by hostile fire. The team leader called for sniper support to neutralize a sniper nest threatening their position. Elena moved into position, her heart steady despite the chaos. She spotted the enemy sniper and calculated her shot. The tension was thick. One wrong move could give her away. With precise control, she squeezed the trigger. The enemy sniper fell silent. Her teammates advanced, breaking through the ambush. Later, as the unit regrouped, the team leader clapped her on the shoulder. "You saved our skins today. We owe you." Elena nodded. No words were needed. But it wasn't just about saving lives. It was about proving that a woman could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best, in the most dangerous places on Earth. Months passed, each mission sharpening her skills and resolve. The challenges never stopped. Harsh environments, unexpected enemy tactics, long hours in hiding, waiting for the perfect moment. Yet Elena thrived. She wasn't just breaking records anymore. She was making history. Her story spread beyond the base. Letters arrived from young women inspired by her journey. Messages from veterans who saw in her the future of the Corps. One evening, she received a letter from her father's old unit. Inside was a photo of them together, taken years ago. Written on the back, "You made me proud." Elena held the photo close, a quiet smile touching her lips. She had come a long way, from a girl with a borrowed rifle, shooting targets in a backyard, to a Marine who broke records, defied expectations, and proved what true strength looks like. But the road ahead was still long, because Elena knew the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot.